Day 2 in Paris, in the books. We have a women's Olympic 100-meter champion. Her name is Julien Alfried. She is from St. Lucia, which I'm sure Google results are skyrocketing for right now. Brilliant run, 10.72, relegating Sha'Carri Richardson to the silver medal. Richardson did not start well and was never really in it. It was a dominant run in the end. Julien Alfried will break that all down. Melissa Jefferson of the U.S. gets the bronze. Ryan Crouser, three-peat in the Olympic shot put. The GOAT, just doing GOAT things. Yeah, he took 3 legal throws. All 3 would have won the competition. Joe Kovacs, third straight silver medal as well. So Americans go 1-2 in that event. We had Thea Lafond of Dominica taking the women's triple jump. First ever medal for Dominica, just like Alfred had the first ever medal in the 100 for St. Lucia. First ever medal, any Olympic event in track and field, any Olympic sport, period. So big day for both of those countries. Lots of celebrations back home. Marcus Ruth is your decathlon Olympic champion from Norway. Great start to the meet for Norway. Don't think we could have seen this one coming. Well, then I'll be honest. I don't think I even knew this guy's name a couple days ago, but he got it done. This was the decathlon is a brutal survival test, and he thrived with 6 personal bests. So he got the win there. What am I missing? Oh, Femke Bol, one of the greatest anchor legs in the history of the Olympics, 47.93 to win the gold in the mixed 4x4 for the Netherlands. She redeems herself from her fall at the end of last year's World Championships. Just a terrific comeback, really great race. It was a fun night in the stadium for sure. And we're going to break it all down for you right now on the Let'sRun.com Track Talk podcast. Thanks, Supporters Club listeners, for tuning in, whether it's live or, at your leisure.
Thank you, John. Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, John, it was a great night for the small, tiny little islands. That's the beauty of our sport. It is so much more international. Make sure that mic's on. So much more international than any sport in the world. It is the most universal sport. Like swimming is essentially a few Western countries. Bicycling, the same thing. I mean, some of these other sports, wrestling is actually pretty universal, but to be a runner, I mean, it's the most basic thing that human beings do on the planet. After like eating and drinking, you got to walk around and you try to run around, and that's what we saw today. And ladies and gentlemen, got to say, all of the Paris
thing has stayed the same for the past 60 years.
Feldspar.
What if we could run even faster by reinventing the
Feldspar? They're trying to take track to the 21st century.
The
actually change track. That'll leave you here for
running track.
So the first smart track prototype coming out in the year. Check it out. FeldSparSport.com.
Analytics delivered in real time to redefine coaching and athlete.
Well, then we've also got controversy because there are social media clips circulating. Shelly-Anne, Fraser-Pryce, and Sha'Carri Richardson being denied entrance to the track. Now, we know that Sha'Carri got into the track eventually because we obviously saw her run. Don't know if that affected Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce's decision to scratch from the 100 prelims. We haven't gotten an explanation on that yet, but it's unfortunate because this is the GOAT, the female sprinting GOAT. She's in her 5th Olympics. She went medal, 2 of them gold in the previous 4. She's going for her 5th straight medal, and she didn't even get the chance to run the semis. Now, exactly why that is, again, still waiting on a reason, but I'm sure there are conspiracy theories out there. Whether being denied access to the stadium, did that affect Sha'Carri's performance tonight? I mean, for all we know, she could have just walked around the corner and walked into the stadium, 30 seconds later. So we don't know what's going on, but there is a little controversy, which is always kind of entertaining at the Olympics, but maybe not entertaining if it's throwing off the pre-race plans of these two of the best sprinters in the world.
Yeah, let's just address that right off the bat. So we've not heard officially from anyone like what happened. Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce did not start the semifinal. Well, John, when we were getting to the track, I guess we could look up the times here, but it was about 7 o'clock.
Yeah, the first event on the track was 7:15. We probably got in a little before 7. Before we even got there was video of Sha'Carri and Shelly-Anne being, having struggles getting into the track. And that was that must be okay. The first round of the semis of the women's 100 were at 7:50. So this had to be at least an hour before the semi. So again, we don't know how much, if at all, their preparations were affected because Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce didn't compete, so she didn't come through the mix zone. Sha'Carri Richardson did not speak to reporters in the mix zone. She also skipped the medalist press conference, which we were told is mandatory, but somehow she and Melissa Jefferson didn't attend. So we don't have an explanation from either camp on this. So we can't tell you with any certainty how much it may have affected their preparations.
And like at the time, those videos were already out. Ray's take, I guess we should, John, pull up this Twitter. But
we don't need to.
There's a lot of stuff that isn't true, essentially. So, but there, I mean, I'm sure people, if you're just on Sprint Twitter, you've seen this. But let me try to find this thing. He essentially said, my understanding was that Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce couldn't warm up. She didn't want to get injured, and that Sha'Carri ran without warming up. I honestly think that's about a 20% chance this happened because it's not that hard to get in the stadium. If you couldn't get in one entrance, you just walk around and you're in very quickly. Max, if you walk all the way around the stadium, that would take like less than 15 minutes. And if Sha'Carri Richardson and Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce weren't in the stadium, we already have a video of them not getting in one entrance. Thousands of people were out there would be filming them. Like we'd have a lot more video. It just doesn't make sense that they were like essentially like locked out from the stadium for a long amount of time and not allowed to compete. So
we don't know, but obviously, like if this really limited their warm-up time, and if it contributed to Fraser-Pryce withdrawing, or it contributed to Sha'Carri not having any warm-up time, that is a major story. This is the Olympic Games. These are two of the most prominent athletes in the entire sport, and we don't know, did it affect any other athletes? Was it just those two? But if it threw them off, yes, it's a massive story, but we just don't know yet. So let's talk about what did happen. What did happen, we know for sure, Julien Alfried is your Olympic champion. She did it by running a brilliant race. I mean, she buried this field. 10.72, national record. Wind was minus 0.01, so basically still conditions. She got a great start, which she's known for. She's the world indoor champion in the 60 meters. She's one of the fastest ever in that distance. And then her acceleration phase was also very good as well. I mean, by the time Sha'Carri Richardson finished her drive phase and started looking down the track, Alfred was already gone, and she wasn't running her down. We have seen Sha'Carri close very quickly in the past. She wasn't able to do it tonight. Her reaction times throughout the rounds and tonight were awful. She gave up 0.08 to Alfred just based on reaction time alone. Now, even with a good start, Sha'Carri would have needed to bring her A game. Running 10.72 in still conditions, that's a brilliant run. Sha'Carri has run faster last year in Budapest, but that also took a brilliant run. So I think it's two things. Sha'Carri, maybe she underperformed a little. Clearly her start was an issue, but Alfred was also brilliant, and it would have taken a terrific race for anyone to beat her tonight.
Yeah. I mean, Alfred brought her A game, right? Like A+. In the rain at the Olympics in PR, A+. Sha'Carri has run faster. What she ran last year? World's 10.63?
10.65.
10.65. Like, she runs that race today, she wins, and she's nowhere close. I mean, John, think about it. She's 0.22 off of what she ran last year. This was not a good performance by her. Her start has plagued her. And after the semifinal, where Alfred beat Sha'Carri for the first time tonight, I mean, you don't put too much stock. I thought, well, Sha'Carri about 60 meters in thought, I'm not going to catch her. I've got second. Like, there's no need to kill myself. But that's when the speculation really got going, because I think a lot of people really thought, I mean, Sha'Carri Richardson is the face of track and field in America, at least on the female side. Sadie McLaughlin, apologies accepted, but she's more prominent than Sydney.
Yeah, I'd say that.
And this was like her Olympics. And then stuff really started lining up, right? Coming into the year, who was going to beat Sha'Carri Richardson?
Well, I was thinking Shericka Jackson probably was the biggest contender. And look, Alfred is a year younger than her. Alfred was 5th at Worlds last year. Alfred was the only woman to beat Sha'Carri before the World Championships last year. So I think one of the things that's people underrated with her was she got 5th at Worlds last year, but she did it. It was her 47th race of the season. So she'd been running hard since indoors. She was running like collegiate records indoors. And then she goes outdoors and she's running all these relays and individual races, does the sprint triple for Texas. And then she gets to Worlds at the end of August. I think she ran some, Caribbean championships or something in the middle as well of the summer. She gets to Worlds in August. She's just exhausted and she gets fifth. But this year, she laid it out. She's like, look, I was a full professional now. I didn't have to worry about NCAAs. I didn't have to worry about running any sort of national trials. I could just plan everything around the Olympics. And she timed it absolutely perfectly. And look, if you were paying attention, Alfred clearly had a shot to win this race based on her results. She ran 10:85 into a pretty significant headwind, minus 0.10 in Monaco a few weeks ago. That, I would say that's probably close to what Sha'Carri ran, 10:72, and I think she had a tailwind in Eugene, which is a very fast straightaway. So those two things, that kind of showed you she was close. Granted, Sha'Carri beat her by a tenth of a second at the pre-classic. That's why I had Sha'Carri as the favorite still. But what did Otto Bolden say on our podcast? Well, then, when we were previewing the events, he said, no one who starts that inconsistently can be viewed as unbeatable. And Sha'Carri starts, we saw it at the U.S. Olympic trials. They were terrible in the first two rounds. And she put it together and she ran a great time in the final. But last year World Championships, awful in the semifinals, but she puts it together. She delivered when it counts. Tonight, the biggest race of her life, she did not start well. And I don't know if it cost her the gold, but, it really hurt her chances of winning tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of interesting, right? That, I don't know. Now people are speculating, is this what's going to happen to Noah Lyles, the face of American sprinting on the men's side in the 100?
Well, it could. We'll get to his prelim this morning, but
he got
certainly possible.
First round. But my only issue with Sha'Carri, I mean, she's had such a crazy journey to get to this point. 2021 wins the U.S. trials. Was very popular then. Gets the marijuana suspension, which was just a complete joke. That's supposed to be a minor suspension. And as a result, when you get a speeding ticket, you should not miss the Olympics. I'm sorry, you should be able to time when you miss your 3 months. But comes back the next year, and we're gonna have Worlds in Eugene. It's gonna be Sha'Carri redemption show. People forget she did not make it out of the first round at USA. It's that's so unfathomable to me. Then people are like, wow, she a head case. Comes back at the end of years, blasting fast times, correct, in 2022?
Well, she was running blasting fast times in 2022 when? Before the trials?
After.
I don't think so.
Anyway, comes back the next year, last year, just lights it on fire.
Yeah.
A+, a plus. And then this year comes in, and now I wish we could talk to Sha'Carri about a few things. Started off the season actually very poorly in those 200s. What was that, April, May in the Diamond League?
Yeah, she didn't break 200 in one of them. It was April.
23, right?
Yeah, sorry, didn't break 23 in one of them. She didn't race all that much. She was racing a lot before the Worlds last year, but this year starts out with 22.99 in Xiamen, gets beat by a 19-year-old Aussie, then 23.11 in Suzhou, then runs one meet before the trials, which is pre-classic. She wins it in 10.83. That was pretty cool conditions in Eugene that day. So I thought, okay, she's good. Then she runs 10.71 at the Olympic trials. So, okay, she didn't start that fast this season, and she wasn't racing as much, but she still has 10.83. She beat Alfred convincingly. 10.71 world leader. This is not she wasn't in shape. And look, I can't tell you exactly what's going on with her because, again, she doesn't talk to the media. And we've talked about this before. I don't really mind if people skip the media between the rounds or whatever. That's if you want to focus in, that's your prerogative. As a professional athlete at the Olympic Games, when you win a medal, you should be held accountable. You need to be at that press conference. And the fact that Julien Alfred, she didn't seem to care really. This is her first time on the podium. She's like, I'm just soaking it in. But you owe it to the gold medalists, the other medalists, to be with them in that press conference and, just answer a few questions and then go on with your life. You don't need to talk to the press for the rest of the year. But to me, that's just part of being a professional is handling the questions and taking, a couple questions in the moment when you've suffered a defeat.
Yeah, win or lose, you should address the media. And if it's a rule, you know what Julien Alfred has tomorrow, John, at 10:55 a.m.?
200 meters first round.
Right. So I get it. If there's a rule that medalists have to be to the press conference, which we were told, and then they're like, well, I can't physically make her be here. If that's a rule and you don't have a race like the next day or something, you should be essentially disqualified from all future events at that Olympics. I'm sorry. Like, they need some repercussions or a fine or something. Like, the NBA, people address the thing after not getting the result they want. Melissa Jefferson missed it as well. She did talk to stop in the mix zone and talk. So I don't know. We can't belabor the point, but like, also Sha'Carri, she doesn't need us. She gets upset that people don't tell her story. She doesn't really need the media because she's bigger than the media and she can go direct to people. But there are still a lot of gaps and questions we have that we want to ask and find out. And also, what happened today? Like, there's so many unknowns.
Right.
When you showed up at the track, what happened? Did that affect your preparation? Like, is that an easy out for her? Like, is that why she didn't perform her best? Did the pressure get to you? Whatever it is, like, no, I don't know. She's got such a good, just people want to know more about Sha'Carri and the athlete. And I don't know, when you just present a polished version of yourself to everybody. I mean, polished maybe isn't the right word, because I think one thing that people love about Sha'Carri is her authenticity. But
I don't think you can have it both ways. You can't be critical of the media for not getting your story right or for being unfair to you, but then also just not engage with them at all and even give us a chance to tell your story. So anyway, we've talked about that stuff before. Let's give a shout out to Melissa Jefferson, 1092. She was clearly overjoyed by getting on the podium. This was a great run for her. She was very, very surprising U.S. champ 2 years ago. She ran collegiately at Coastal Carolina. She was only 8th at NCAAs that year. Then she ends up winning USAs. I'm like, wow, this is a huge talent here. And then last year didn't go that well for her. I think she was still with her college coach, still sort of making that transition to the pro lifestyle. And this year she changed coaches to Dennis Mitchell. That's a full, that's not a college setup. That is a full professional training group. She got some great training partners with TT Terry and Sha'Carri, and she raised her game. She was terrific at the U.S. Championships, and then again, biggest stage she's ever been on, 1092 for the bronze. Just really impressive how she has bounced back. She's a young athlete, so it's not like last year was like, oh, it's the end of the world. But you see these people. She certainly showed that 2022 U.S. title was not a fluke. Like, she's one of the best in the world, and she deserves that bronze medal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, once the Jamaicans sort of went out, I guess I knew Alfred was going to get a medal. I guess we got 2 of 3. That's the best I actually would have thought really at that point. But I thought
2 Americans were not beating Julien.
Yeah, no. But I thought most likely we would have the gold medal.
It's kind of
and the Tia Clayton, the Jamaican, didn't run well in the final. She ran,
but she's only 19.
I know she's so young. She's like, I'm young. I'm not too old. I'm like, I was looking at her, I'm like, you're a kid. She's 19 years old.
We've got
won the semifinal, which I think was a surprise.
Yeah.
Non-factor 11:04 in the final.
It's kind of a change in the guard, I feel like. I mean, we'll see if Shericka Jackson comes back, but Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce said she was planning on retiring at the end of this season after the Olympics. So she may have run her final race at this point. Elaine Thompson-Herah is injured, not even at the Olympics. And then we've got Alfred, who's 23, Richardson, who's 24, Jefferson's in her early 20s. This is sort of the new generation. And then we've got Tia Clayton as well. Jackson, I feel like of the 3 really Jamaican stars who've dominated the last few years, she's the one who might have a chance of making it back. But, looking ahead to the next few championships and even to LA 28, Alfred, Richardson, Jefferson, they're still going to be around. I'm sure there are going to be a couple more sprint talents emerging. And then you've got Tia Clayton and her twin sister, Tina Clayton, sort of waiting in the wings to take up the mantle for Jamaican sprinting. So I feel like that Jamaican triumvirate of Jackson, Thompson-Herah, and Fraser-Pryce, that era is sort of coming into an end. But Jackson still has a shot in the 200 in Paris. So we'll see what she does there.
And Otto Bolden on our podcast essentially said Elaine Thompson-Herah thinks her career is over. But he said also, when Shelly-Anne hangs it up, they need to have a tribute to her. We need to have one right now. She won the 2008 Olympics. I mean, that's 16 years ago. So unbelievable that this age, I guess we've seen some women sprint at this age, not at this level, but she's 37. Comes back, 2012 wins it. And then you have the Elaine Thompson-Herah, the last 2 Olympics. But it's a shame if this was the final Olympic appearance. Like, the fans didn't get her at the Olympics. I mean, she would be slated to come back in the 4x1, but I'm assuming there might be some sort of injury. maybe she just cramped up and said, "Look, I don't want to injure myself." She probably knew. Look, I'm not going to get a gold. Maybe I'll sneak a bronze here.
I mean,
and I'll save myself for the 4x1. Hopefully, I don't know. I guess I don't want to injure more than she was like deprived from authorities from racing. I guess neither thing's a good scenario there.
yeah, the thing. I mean, Shelly-Anne Fraser-Pryce, her dominance and the amount of time she's dominated for is just I don't know if I would say totally unparalleled, because we have had, I'm racking my brain. Who was the Jamaican before her who was really good for a long time? Well, then 80s, 90s, 2000. Merlin, that's who I'm thinking of. She was really great for a long time too. But Shelly-Anne, I mean, 7 global titles. No one's ever done that in 100. And 10 medals. She medaled 10 times in the individual 100 meters across world championships and Olympics. 10 championships with them. Like, no one's ever going to do that again. Like, please wake me up the next time a 100-meter sprinter gets 10 medals in 100.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see it. I mean, who knows? One thing I thought that was interesting from Alfred, because in the mix zone she was saying, and she also said this sort of in the press conference, was, like last year I didn't really believe I could compete at this level, and I think also she had a long season because she was running times so fast early this season. I mean, she would have been competitive at Worlds if she was running those in August. And then we said, well, when did you get the confidence? And she's like, this morning. And I think she sounded like she's thinking about her body, but it sounds like she just almost woke up more confident today. But then she journals every day, and she just said she started writing down today, Julien Alfred, Olympic champion, 100-meter champion. And then she took did she say not a TikTok, but a Snapchat?
Snapchat. I didn't know kids are still doing Snapchat these days. Yeah. Apparently, she's going to single-handedly bring Snapchat back to popularity now. And she's St. Lucia. The other thing, she's very proud to represent St. Lucia. She should be in Uber rides, and her driver, would notice her accent. Let's say, "Oh, where are you from?" And then she'd tell them, and then their answer would be, "Well, where's St. Lucia?" For you guys, if you're not sure, it's in the Southern Caribbean. It's quite a small island. Population's only about 200,000. But I don't know if she totally grasps how big this is, like, for her and for the world. Most people don't when they have this sort of breakthrough, because it takes a while to set in. But this isn't just Julien Alfred putting St. Lucia on the map. This is when people say St. Lucia, now they'll say, "Oh, that's where Julien Alfred's from. That's where the woman who won the Olympic golds from," right? Like, that is going to be the connection between St. Lucia and Julien Alfred, probably for the rest of her life. And certainly for the next few years, when someone mentions the word St. Lucia, they'll be like, "Oh, I know that. That's where the fastest woman in the world comes from." So it's pretty cool to see. And the scenes in Castries, which is the capital, they were going nuts. They had this, the race on a big screen. So it's just cool to see some of the smaller nations get some love there.
Yeah. Also, one thing I wanted to ask her is, she lives in Austin, trains for Coach Edric Florial, the University of Texas coach, who also got a silver medal in the decathlon. We can talk about that a little bit today in a minute. But she probably goes around Austin totally nondescript. She lives in America. She sees Sha'Carri, literally probably can go just about anywhere and never be recognized. Now she's the Olympic gold medalist. I mean, her life is going to just radically change. I got a little clip here from her press conference talking about Coach Flo.
So I met Coach Flo in 2019. He recruited me to come to the University of Texas, Austin. Earlier on this year, especially after World Indoors, I was just so hard on myself and feeling so much pressure, feeling like I have to go out there, represent my country again, just seeing the amount of people that supported me. But he helped me turn that pressure into motivation, and he's been my rock. He's been there with me through the ups and the downs, through the hard times. I'm just happy he never gave up on me, and he's like a dad to me, a mentor to me. I'm just really happy. He believed in me, and this is why I'm here right now today, sitting in front of you guys.
All right. Any other final thoughts on the women's 100, Weldon?
No. I mean, the excitement in the stadium. The stadium's been amazing. I showed up for the repechage rounds today, and it was unbelievable. But people were pumped. There is a resale market for tickets. You couldn't get a ticket. Like people at tickets were like, I'm going to this thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know if this is the case or not. It's a very pro-French crowd, but people say there were more Americans today. People were there to see Sha'Carri Richardson, and they didn't get the result a lot of people wanted or expected, but that's sport. It makes it more interesting. I mean, Julien Alfred's an amazing story. Leo, the Olympic decathlon silver from Germany trains her. He's like, she's an amazing. I'm really happy. She's like an amazing human being. Like there's this sort of like brotherhood between people who train together. So it's just a cool story.
Well, and the other thing is, I don't think we should be viewing this as, oh, Sha'Carri Richardson, she choked. This is a failure. She's still got an Olympic silver medal. Those are very hard to do. We know she's been through some rough years the last couple of years. She came in as the favorite. She didn't perform up to her best of her ability, but she got beat by an outstanding athlete. And to come home with a silver medal from your first Olympics, that's not the worst consolation prize in the world. I'm sure she would have wanted the gold, but I think it's unfair to label it a failure, especially when you look at how good Alfred ran tonight.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't her best, but choking, whatever. It's sport.
Now,
that's makes it so interesting.
Who do you got in the 200 now? Julien Alfred, who pushed Gabby Thomas close in London. Gabby Thomas or Shericka Jackson, whose health is a huge question mark after she scratched the 100.
I'm going with Alfred now. All right, could St. Lucia have the 100? This is the Sha'Carri Richardson Olympics. Could St. Lucia have the 100 and 200 meter Olympic champion? That would be crazy. I mean, Gabby Thomas closed her down in London. Julien said she doesn't like the 200, but now this huge burden. She can run free, and Gabby has a history of underperforming at the major championships. I think that's a fair.
You think that's fair? I think she does not run as fast outside of Eugene as she does in Eugene, but she got the bronze in 2021, where she lost to an all-time run from Elaine Thompson-Herah and Christine Mboma, who is DSD and no longer competing. And last year, she got the silver behind one of the fastest runs ever by Shericka Jackson. So that, to me, that's basically a bronze and silver, or a silver and silver if you're taking out the DSD, behind two all-time great performances. She didn't run as fast as she did at the trials, but she's still a legitimate contender. But after tonight, yeah, Alfred's odds definitely went up at that 200. Thomas needs to run that ton better because we know Alfred is a great starter. So it's going to be interesting. That's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun event.
Interesting comments here. So, saying Julien Alfred saved track from American propaganda machine. Now it's up to the Jamaicans to stop Lyle. We got a lot of foreign visitors here. And people are debating Sha'Carri's behavior in the press conference. She should have been at the press conference. Yes, every other press conference, the top three were there. Somebody was telling me it's swimming. A lot of people would skip them. But I was assuming, I'm like, what % had other events to swim? And he's like, good point. Now Sha'Carri could say, oh, I have the 4x1
in a few days, like
a week from now, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, Femke Bol didn't show up, but she's got the 400 hurdles prelims like tomorrow morning, so I can understand that. We didn't get an explanation. We asked USATF why Jefferson and Richardson wanted the press conference. They didn't have an answer for us immediately. They said they'd work on it. So
okay, a couple more things. Yes, Julien Alfred did run for the Longhorns. Someone's confused in the chat. And she did move to Jamaica, I think at like 14 or something, because she wanted to be a better runner. I think she thought the better training was there. And she came to college in the States. So if you're on a tiny little island,
move to a slightly larger island, but one that's obsessed with sprinting.
Right. They have one track. Dominica has no track.
Dominica.
Damn it, I almost got it right. We can get to that in a moment. But all right, that's the women's 100. With no, like, we can talk about the 1500 repechage rounds.
Do we have to?
We'll talk about those second. Well, I can talk about this real quickly. There's one interesting thing. This is primarily, if you're joining us now, this is the Feldspar. Let's run.com. Trying to get this comment off here. Sorry. Day 2 reaction show. Thank you, Feldspar, for trying to revolutionize the track surface. Go to feldsparsport.com. Thanks, everyone listening. We're primarily a distance website. We're not primarily. I think that's our focus. But we cover the whole sport of track and field. And the only distance race today was the there's no R in there, right?
No, repechage.
Repechage round of the 1500 is essentially a loser's bracket of the 1500. First time ever this has existed in track and field at the Olympics. And it was pretty cutthroat. It was 3 heats, top 2 advanced.
There's 2 heats, top 3 advanced. We don't need to look. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this. I want to talk about Femke Bol.
Right, we'll get there in a second. The Aussies bombed out. The Aussies had 3 runners.
Yeah, Stuart McSwain tried to lead the first heat, which this used to be a successful strategy for him. He wouldn't, win all the time, but he at least finished near the top. And recently he just hasn't been quite the same guy. He faded badly. So Ireland gets the semifinalist, Cathal Doyle. Azadine Habs of France, who was kind of surprised that he didn't advance yesterday. He gets the second spot. Osama Meslek of Italy.
We don't now we're breaking down the names.
Well, I'm just telling people what happened. Well, the other one is interesting because the second repechage heat went very quick. Like Federico Riva of Italy, who won it, ran 3:32.84 PB. So, and then it took 3:33 to get the other 2 spots. Philibert Thibauteau from Canada, and George Mills from the UK. So these guys
are losing.
They ran a first round on Friday, second round on Saturday, really fast, like at their PB or very close to it. And now they have to run a third race in 3 days tomorrow against all the guys who beat them the first time around. So I'm looking at this and like, are they just going to get totally crushed and be exhausted tomorrow, or what's going to happen?
The only guy expected to do anything out of this is Ollie Hoare. He's been a world's finalist or Olympic finalist, right? Before
Olympic finalist,
and won in the London Diamond League before this. So I thought, okay, this guy can get back on form. Hobbs, the French guy, is a 3:29 guy. He maybe could do something as well, but Hoare just didn't have it. Faded the bit. Did not get in the top 3, so he's out. Then afterwards, he had some interesting comments. He essentially said, like, I wasn't prepared. And he said that yet while still praising his coach, Dathan Ritzenheim. But you could just tell, like, mentally, I think he was in a very tough spot. And then he said he didn't sleep that well. And then he said he essentially, after the first round, suffered a lot of, like, online abuse. Instagram direct messages. People just were, like, saying nasty shit to him. He's like, I don't know how these top people handle it, like a Noah Lyles.
I can't believe what would, like, motivate someone to just DM an athlete after they run badly at the Olympics and
or something. I have no idea. Like, people are just jerks. And then it's just unfortunate. And this is one reason I wish we could share audio from the Olympics, because people would want to hear this story. So that just kind of sucks. You could tell it like affected him. And then also it's just crazy that a guy who like won his, and maybe you see this sometimes, John. I want to try to give him a little bit of an out. Because he got hurt over the winter, then had to rush back for the Australian Championships. So maybe that lack of base eventually caught up to him, and he missed his peak by a little bit. So he's peaked a couple weeks early, and then you're just sort of, for whatever reason, your body can't do what it could do. But he wins the Diamond League 2 weeks ago, before the last Diamond League here before this. And he's like, I don't have confidence. But the fact that he said he doesn't have confidence at the level, that's, to me, shows it's more of a little mental hiccup. But I don't know. It just, if you told me Australia, as well as those guys, all 3 of them are running early in the year, none of them would make it out of the first round or the repechage round, I'd be like, you're crazy.
Well, I do wonder how much of it is these guys. I mean, this is not a new issue for Australia, but their championships are in April. Their Australian summer ends around then. That's when they have their trials, and they had to be ready for their trials. And then the Olympics are until August. So I don't know, Aussies, if you have opinions on how is there a better way? I'm sure you could have a championships in Australia. There's somewhere that's warm enough to have it in July. But what about all sort of the non-Olympic people, or the people who aren't really that good? Their season's going to be ending in the summer. They won't have been training. I don't know. It's not but maybe if you look at the start of the year and you see their events where, hey, this is going to be a very competitive event for us, which the 1500 clearly was. Say, hey, we're just going to pull this out of the regular champs. We'll have a trials race in July when you guys are all ready to go. So it's not, I mean, there's no easy solution for the Aussies, but this was a rough meet for them.
For sure. And then another Aussie journalist asked Adam Spencer, the NCAA champ for Wisconsin. He went out as well today. They're like, oh, have you suffered any of this online abuse? He said, no, not really. Then he's like, oh, there's the Let's Run clowns. So, just people posting.
Not us.
Not us.
And probably not the people who are on the.
I talked to him. He's like, yeah, it's a different thing. It's not a direct message. But, I'll see some stuff on Let's Run. So just remember, these are real people. And we let fans be fans. And I just told them, if you ever see anything cross the line, obviously we moderate the message boards. But
Now, have you looked at the semis, the start list?
let's do that real quick, and then we'll talk about some of these other events,
Because
including
Dominica,
Kerr
and Ingebrigtsen, same semifinal, just like in Budapest last year. So we could have some fireworks. Cole Hocker is also in that one. And 2 of the 3 Kenyans, Brian Coleman and Reynold Chariot. So on paper, I would have that one as slightly harder than the second one, which has Chariot, Kessler, Laros, Nagus, Nordas, Gorley. Yeah, definitely the first one is the harder semi, but top 6 make it. So, you do have some wiggle room, but it's going to be fun. I'm very interested to see, last year, remember the semi, Ingebrigtsen, he made that big move and he was sort of showboating and putting his finger up, and Kerr just sort of sat back or actually, did Kerr win the thing? I don't remember. Did Kerr finish ahead of him in that one? No, he just got past. But, it was a very entertaining semifinal last year, and now we've got the 2 big guns squaring off together before the real race on Tuesday.
They scored off last year this week. I forgot about that one.
All right, yeah.
But this one, I mean, 6 make it. Those 2 guys are so good. They'll make it. But it's a very tough semi. I mean, the names are up there now. Cole Hocker, she said, John. So that's 3. Chariot.
These
4.
are the 3, well, no, Chariot's Reynold Chariot, yeah, is in this one. But the 3 guys I picked for the podium are all in this race, the first one.
And Brian Coleman, he's running very well this year. Sorry, people. John was really under the weather today. I'm actually surprised he's doing the show, and I picked up a cold. He too, if you're a Hobbs Kessler, man, even in the air and a goose, you got to be happy about this one. It's just
it's the easier heat
by far. I mean, like all 12 of these guys are.
You don't have to worry about Ingebrigtsen or Kerr, and there are other good guys. It's the Olympics. It's not going to be easy, but you would rather be in Heat 2 than Heat 1.
And it's just also really beautiful just to see first 6 in each heat advance to the final.
Yeah, that's
no
great.
other bullshit. It's just let's get this done. So that's the
1500. Let's talk mixed relay. Now, I'll admit, when they first introduced the mixed 4x4, I was a hater. I didn't like it. I thought it was gimmicky. I thought we're not getting the very best athletes in these races. And, I kind of stood by that for the first few editions, but I think I'm being converted. Because we've got a nice little rivalry brewing between the Netherlands and the USA. We've had 2 great races. Last year's World Championship final with Alexis Holmes running down Femke Bol was amazing. And then Femke Bol running down Kaylin Brown to get the gold tonight for the Netherlands. That was also phenomenal. So those 2 races were great. I might be changing my mind. And probably mainly because of Femke Bol and how great she's been and how entertaining she is. But where do you see it, Weldon?
I mean, as long as the U.S. doesn't take it seriously, we'll keep getting beat. Like, we trotted out a B team. They broke the world record in the prelims. We actually came back with the same team. We didn't sub anyone in. We sub in Sydney. We get the gold medal. America it's crazy. Like, we're the only country in the world that takes gold medals for granted and just gives them away. I mean, it's hard to really criticize a team that wow. I mean, they ran 307.41 yesterday, 307.74 today, so 0.3 slower. I mean, they almost ran a world record, and the Netherlands missed a world record by 200s. So they ran well both times, but they got beat because, I mean, just a thumbs up to the Netherlands, right? Femke Bol, 47.9, John, was that her split?
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And in the press conference afterwards, the 2 guys were there and for the Netherlands, and they were like, what were we thinking the last leg? And we were pretty confident. And then confident. I mean, she was so far back. And then on the final turn, we got it. Like, they just said it's over. So it was great drama. I mean, just that a 4x4, when somebody walks somebody down like that, it's one of the better things in track and field. And I see why they historically, close meets with a 4x4 in college. It makes sense when it's competitive, but the U.S. with its 400 talent, this race should not be competitive. Any of the 4x4 relays should not. We have just so much more top end 400 meter running than other country in the depth. Like, we trotted out our best people. I think we we beat the Netherlands by a couple seconds in this one.
Yes, no doubt, because Sydney cancels out Bowl. And I guess, I mean, Lika Klaver is really good. You would probably, Lika Klaver, you could make a case. I guess I'm trying to think who else would be the best American. Kendall Ellis was the U.S. champ. Lika Klaver is probably better than her. But on the men's side, the U.S. would just have a big advantage with their A team. So, yeah, that is my argument against it. It's just the Olympics should not be about this is why I'm not a fan of men's soccer in the Olympics. That's not the best men's soccer players in the world. Like, the Olympics should be about the very best of the best, and this event isn't quite that. But that said, I love that Femke Bol shows up and takes this stuff seriously and wants to win. And the thinking, Robert's like, why is Femke Bol doing this and Sydney doesn't? Well, one, we know that Sydney doesn't like to race that much, but also, if you're American, you're thinking the 4x4 that's a very good chance to win the regular 4x4, and that's a more prestigious medal to win. And I don't have to worry about doing anything before my individual event. All of that logic, I can understand why the very best kind of would say, hey, we don't want to do it. But that said, Femke usually runs all three of these relays at the championships. And guess what? She won gold in two of them last year. And it would have been a third without that full. This time around, is this going to take out a ton of her performance levels for the final and the 400 hurdles? Like, is she not going to be running well in that because she ran this one race? I don't think so, but I guess that's the argument for why someone like Sydney wouldn't run it. But I don't know. Femke's shown the last couple of years you can run all of these and run pretty well.
Yes, some of these comments are interesting. People all in the games to Devin ran 44.7 versus 44.1.
Well, yeah, no, if you compare the splits, the first two legs, which was Vernon Norwood and Shamir Little, ran almost identical to the prelims. And Dedman was a little slower, 44.7 instead of 44.1. Kaylin Brown was I think she was a little faster today, 49.1 instead of 49.4. So that was, in terms of the world record splits versus today, Dedman was the difference. And yeah, if he put a little bit more gap on the Netherlands on the third leg, Bol wouldn't have been able to catch them. And could get controversial because, again, Quincy Wilson was left off this team. And we don't know if that's because he was hurt but and look, I can understand you break the world record in the prelims. You don't want to make any changes for the final. But at the same time, Quincy Wilson ran 44.2 open a few weeks ago. Dedman could only split 44.7 tonight. And that's a relay split. It should be faster. So could Quincy Wilson have done better? He very well could have, but we also don't know if he's 100% healthy. And Dedman did run well yesterday.
The women's four doesn't start till. Who do we have in the women's four? Can we put one of them on the team? I don't know. I
mean, the American 400 women ran pretty well today. 49.4 for Little and 49.1 for Caitlin Brown. Those were good legs. I don't think you're going to have that much better from anyone outside of Sydney.
I mean, I do like to see Shamir Little because she's so talented. I mean, she's like a top 5 400-meter hurdler of all time, top 7, something like that in terms of absolute time on the all-time list. She's top 10 for sure. And just has a history of coming up short sort of individually. The fact she even got to run at the Olympics was good, and she ran well both times. So, that was good to see. But people are saying in the comments, John, Quincy Wilson, and I don't know. Once again, we don't know why he wasn't selected, if there might have been some injury in the camp or what the deal was. I can see how you don't want to put a high school kid on a team. There's a lot of pressure. Whatever. Oh my God, though, it would have been just wonderful. Put him in the first round. Come on. If he's healthy or whatever. So I want to, you can easily question. Put me in charge of the team. I convince one of the better people somehow to run the thing. Do you want another gold medal? It adds up. The gold medals you have. We saw what happened. Sha'Carri Richardson now has 0 gold medals. If you have a shot at a gold medal and it doesn't compromise you too much, I think you should take it. We love our gold medalists. The world loves gold medalists. Go for it.
All right. Couple field events we should give some love to tonight in Paris. Ryan Crouser, I mean, what can you say about this guy? He was already the best ever. Double Olympic champion, 2 Olympic records. Now he gets his third straight Olympic title, his third straight global title. He was banged up at the start of the year, didn't compete at all until the U.S. trials after World Indoors, and still shows up, goes 22.90, just rises to the occasion, and he's the best ever. I don't know what else you can say. Joe Kovacs, though, the crazy thing is, if Ryan Crouser was never born, Joe Kovacs is probably the greatest shot putter ever.
Right?
Because he's got a bunch of silver medals. I know he has 3 straight Olympic silver medals, but in terms of worlds, he's been up there as well. He's also got silver at 2017 London. That was not behind Crouser, though. 2022 Eugene, that was behind Crouser. And he's thrown 23-23, which is the second farthest, number 2 on the all-time list. So if you erase Ryan Crouser from the record books, Joe Kovacs is the GOAT. It just so happens he has been competing at the same time as Ryan Crouser. But, to his credit, Joe Kovacs is still a 2-time world champion. He beat Crouser in 2019 in Doha at the Worlds when they both were throwing, 22-9. So he's beaten Crouser a couple times when it matters. But, yeah, Crouser's just a little better than him.
Yeah, and they both were sort of injured coming in, I think. Crouser, I was like, when did you know you start feeling good again? Or you kind of knew you'd have it. And he's like, I think he said this morning or today. He's like, look, throwing, it's very hard on my arm. And in practice, that's sort of balancing, how hard I was going, essentially throwing the shot. And so I think he said maybe in warm-ups, he realized, like, okay, my arm's fine today. I'm going to be okay. And if he's at his best, he's unbeatable. I mean, with Kovacs, they're both the very best, yes, obviously, but almost by definition. But Kovacs is the only guy in that sort of, territory.
And what's interesting, he's immediately asked, would you go for 4 in a row in LA in 28? And Ryan was thinking, he's like, yes, that would be great to do it at a home games, but he's also starting to feel his age right now at 31. And going another 4 years, again, you're putting a lot of stress on your arm. The question is he going to be healthy to do it? And it just puts in perspective how impressive Al Order in the discus and Carl Lewis in the long jump were, winning 4 straight Olympic titles in the same event. Just the longevity you have to have, and you have to be the best in the world, but you also have to have the ability to maintain that and not get injured at the right time and then perform on that one day every 4 years. That's why those are 2 of the most insane streaks in sports, the 4 straight Olympic golds. Yeah, and Crouser does have an opportunity. It would be pretty epic if he could do that. But three in a row is already nuts. It
sounds like that's how he wants to go out. He's like, that'd be a great way to go out. I think it's doable. He'd be essentially Kovacs' age. Kovacs essentially said, my wife wants me to keep going. His wife's his coach. Sounds like there's some hesitation his side. He's got 2 kids under the age of 2, twins. I think he'll be back out there next year. I mean, his wife's a coach. It's like their sort of family thing. But he was saying, so he was in, what place was he in, John? He was in,
I think he was 4th.
4th,
yeah,
to the last throw. And it started raining, I think, in the 4th round. And guys started slipping and falling. And
Crouser didn't take his last throw, I assume, because of the rain.
And the Jamaican, Virginia Campbell, fell pretty badly. Leandro Fabri, the Italian guy, fell. And I'm like, this is over. No one's going to beat their best. And Kovacs steps up there and just launches a bomb. 22-15. It was the same mark that Virginia Campbell, Jamaica's first medal in the shot through. And he said afterwards, that was, I think he said, essentially not the farthest throw, but the most clutch throw of my life. He's like, in those conditions, it wasn't pretty. He just sounded like, he just said, I just have to do this. I don't care how. I'm just going to muscle it out there. And, it's by the, this is where the measurement comes in. Because I think they have some laser system, John. They don't go out and put a thing in the ground. So I think somehow cameras just measure automatically, which is fascinating because that's, I presume, more accurate. But otherwise, maybe someone can put in the comments, the shot guys, where the person goes and puts the stick can easily vary a couple inches.
I've heard them talk about this because I remember the 2019 world title. It was the top 3 guys were separated by a centimeter or 2. And they were just saying, yeah, okay, they officially in the results, that's what it was. But, it might be kind of arbitrary that someone just placed the stick somewhere else, that sort of thing. They were saying it's kind of uncertain, and that's the same thing here. Both him and Campbell were 22:15. You know, were they both the exact same distance? They're very close, obviously, but you never 100% know. But either way, it was a great performance by both of them. And, whether it was for the silver or the bronze, it still was a really clutch throw for Kovacs there.
And then people are asking, why they didn't take a rain break. And I started asking the guys afterwards, do you usually show them the shot? Because all of a sudden, they were just not face planting, but I'm like, someone's going to really hurt themselves. And it sounds like maybe it's raining the whole time. They sort of approach it differently, and are throwing over a lower position to start. So when the rain comes on in the competition, maybe it causes a few more problems. Campbell was saying, in the warm up, somebody was saying the other day, maybe he should wet the ring to see what it was like. I didn't totally understand. And the Campbell guy is interesting. We should start sponsoring a thrower, John. That's what we got to do. Let's throw.com. We'll launch the site. This will be our guy. I was like, so how does it work in Jamaica? You got a sponsor, right? He's like, no. He lives in Missouri. He drives for Domino's. So a guy who works for Domino's just got an Olympic bronze medal. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, but also I'm sure a ping pong player has other jobs, but
all right.
Theo LaFond I think has a real job. But I don't know, just the fact he's up there competing with the two greatest shot putters of all time, arguably, and gets a bronze while having a gig at Domino's.
Okay, well then we're gonna have to call this in a minute or two. It's 2 a.m. here. We got heats of the women's steeple in about 8 hours, so we're gonna need to get some sleep at some point. But I do want to shout out the decathlon champion Marcus Ruth of Norway. This was a brutal decathlon. We already had the world champion from last year, P.S. LePage of Canada, withdrew due to injury beforehand. Kevin Meyer, the world record holder, this was supposed to be his home Olympics. He withdrew the day before the games due to injury. So you still have a bunch of other guys. Leo Neugebauer of Germany was probably the favorite, the NCAA champion. And he ends up finishing second. He was leading through 8 events, but the last 2 events are not great for him, the javelin and the 1500. He's a big guy. He's really good at sort of the super strong events like the discus and the shot. And so he just didn't have a big enough lead over Marcus Ruth of Norway, who had the meat of his life. Again, wasn't really familiar with this guy. He wasn't even, for a long time here, he wasn't even the best Norwegian. Sander Skotheim was third through 7 events, but no-highted the pole vault, as did defending Olympic champion Damian Warner. So you had the guys who were sitting in second and third in the standings, both no-highted the pole vault, and that's just, you no-height the pole vault, your decathlon's over. So pretty wild competition tonight, but Ruth is the champion, 8,796 points. And he had the best marks of anyone in both the javelin and the 1500. So that was what powered him to the victory, the final 2 events.
And we briefly mentioned it because we mentioned Dominica a few times.
Oh, sorry. It wasn't the best across anyone. I think I'm reading this table wrong, but they were 2 of the stronger. Javelin certainly was one of the stronger events. 1500, he finished a little bit farther back.
Theo Lafond got the gold. We thought St. Lucia was impressive. They have 170,000 people. Dominica has 72,000 people. Dominica. Damn it. Dominica. She wants to pronounce it correctly. Dominica. She's got a connection to Let's Run. Rojo was the coach, the distance coach at Cornell, when her husband, Aaron Gatson, and coach was on the Cornell team. This guy's an engineer. Clearly, she was a heptathlete in college at Maryland, then sort of a mediocre triple jumper. Now she's the world champion. So congrats to both of them. Cool story. Today was the day of the underdogs. Not that Alfred was a huge underdog, but coming from a tiny little country of 170,000 people. Yeah. And then Lafond, the same thing. So tomorrow, I think there's only one track final, John. Bummer.
Yeah, it's probably won't be very popular. People will have to stay away from the track. No, this is going to be. This always happens. You see, you have all these press seats and press tables in the tribunes, and they're not always in use for every session and that sort of stuff. Usually you can get a spot. And then you've got a big event like the men's 100 final. And that's where all the journalists, this is like what I was doing when I go up to the tennis or the swimming the first couple of nights. This is where everyone wants to come. It's the Olympic 100-meter final for the men. It's one of the greatest sporting events on earth. It's just something everyone can relate to. You know, everyone gets it. It's the simplest thing. And the winner is the world's fastest man. So that is going to be a lot of fun to see that. It's 9:50 Paris time, so it's 3:50 p.m. Eastern time. We've also got women's high jump final, women's 800 semis, and men's 1500 semis. So those are two good sets of semifinals.
Great
right
day
before
tomorrow.
100. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
And apparently, I'm now checking the chat. Now I see people talking about. Apparently, the sound was playing when I was playing the Feldspar video at the beginning. My apologies. My apologies to Feldspar. I'm sponsoring the thing. I script the video. I was just going to talk over the video, not actually play the sound. Clearly hit the wrong button. But thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Feldspar, for sponsoring. Check that out, feldsparsport.com. And
See you
so
on
we're
Sunday
only
night.
2 days out of how many, John?
10.
10?
Yeah.
Till tomorrow.